Many of us are obsessed trying to build a body with extremely large and swollen muscles. You know, the kind of physique that modern bodybuilders like Heath and Greene has? Even though this level of development can be impressive and certainly look freakish, is this really the body that most people truly want and actually believe look good? Well, I decided to find out what most people believe is the best looking male physique, and that's exactly what we're going to look at in this video. We will look at two things called the golden ratio and the Adonis index ratio. We will cover why these ratios matters for aesthetics, and finally we will look at where you currently are and what you should do to build a perfect male physique. Done. Okay, so first of all, too much size is negative. When looking at the existing research on what the perfect male body looks like, it's not the overall size of the male that matters, it's the proportions between the shoulders and the waist. One of the paper even states, for males, the most important proportions are that between the shoulders and waist. A near universal sexually attractive feature of a man is a V-shaped torso, which would be a relatively small waist offset with broad shoulders. For instance, guys that are too big and bulky seem to turn off women according to this study. Another study also showed that most guys actually overestimate the amount of muscle they think women will be attracted to. In fact, if you rely on your own beliefs, you will end up overestimating the size you think you would need to be by almost 30 pounds. In other words, if most women think you will look great at 180 pounds, you will most likely take for granted that you need to be 210 pounds. At which point, most women will probably think you look too big and freaky. Most men are comparing themselves to other men, just like women compare themselves to other women. Just as women want to be smaller and thinner than other women, guys always want to be bigger and stronger than other guys. But this reasoning is flawed, because you can't just continue to get bigger and bigger. It's physiologically impossible. And it's also the mindset that could potentially lead to drug abuse. In fact, there is a fine line between having the right amount of muscle and too much muscle. Actually, while we're on that note, research has also shown that sheer size is almost never an indicator of financial or social success. In fact, people tend to view bodybuilders as overweight, and because of that, it can hurt your chances when it comes to career and financial success. The bottom line here is that the ideal size of the male physique is somewhere between being decently muscular and close to the natural genetic limit. And this is what Greg from Keano refers to as the 3 stages of development: the warrior physique, the Greek god physique, and the superhero physique. So, if sheer size is not considered the perfect male body, what is then? Well, a certain shoulder to waist ratio has a lot to do with it. In surveys done on the subject, women from all cultures repeatedly choose a shoulder to waist ratio of 1 to 1.6 as being the most attractive. This is where your shoulders are 1.6 times bigger than your waist. In fact, ratios that exceed this number, such as the ratio of a bodybuilder might achieve with steroids, and ratios that fell significantly below this number, think of a distance runner or someone who is overweight with a large waist, were both stated as being less attractive. But the question then becomes, why did nearly all women believe that 1 to 1.6 ratio to be the most attractive number? Why wasn't 1 to 1.7 or 1 to 1.5 the most attractive? Well, it turns out that the number 1 to 1.6 is a very special ratio known as the golden ratio. 1 to 1.6 is an ancient mathematical principle that governs many natural laws. Laws such as the shape and proportion of the human body and even the growth pattern of plants. The gold ratio is actually one of the keys to the human perception of beauty and attraction. Your shoulder to waist ratio is the most important ratio for the overall look of your body. It is the ratio that you're most often judged on because it's immediately visible and very hard to hide even under layers of clothing. In a study by Horvath et al., they found that as you walk into a room, your shoulder to waist ratio is the most powerful and immediate representation of your overall shape. Furthermore, this ratio is not something that you're born with. You've got to work out to get it. What I'm talking about here is a level of muscularity that you can build naturally. But remember, you must build it. You're not going to accidentally end up with these ratios without some effort. Now, with the golden ratio in mind, we can calculate something called the Adonis index. The Adonis index is the ratio between your shoulder circumference and your waist circumference. Now, this is just the first part of achieving the perfect male body. You can't just focus on building your shoulders, chest and upper back and reach the ratio that way. No, the perfect physique also comes down to having an ideal waist size. Even though the physical attraction research shows that women are most attracted to guys with a V-taper, and a shoulder to waist ratio that is almost exactly the golden ratio. This rule is only true if the man also has a slim waist. Reaching the 1 to 1.6 ratio by having a bulky waist in combination with very bulky shoulders doesn't cut it. In fact, women report that the look of a man's body becomes unattractive no matter how big his shoulders are if the man also has a fat waist. In other words, the Adonis index only holds true if your waist is closer to its ideal size. So I'm sure you're wondering, what is the ideal waist size then? Well, your ideal waist size is the product of yet another ratio, which is your height to waist ratio. For almost all males, the ideal waist is approximately 45% of his height. So for example, if you are 6 feet tall, you are exactly 72 inches tall, and therefore your ideal waist size is 45% of 72, which equals 32.5 inches. If we want to, we can now calculate the perfect Adonis index ratio for a 6-foot male, which would look like this. Height equals 72 inches, ideal waist equals 45% of height, which equals 32.5 inches, and a perfect shoulder measurement equals 1.6 times 32.5, which was the ideal waist, equals 52.5 inches. Okay, so now I'm sure you're wondering, what about my arms and legs? Well, the Adonis index is the most important body proportion and takes into account the size and shape of your chest, shoulders, upper back and waist. The other measurements on your body that are not incorporated into the Adonis index ratio are the upper arms, the forearms, thighs, hips and calves. So far, there is no research indicating that these other measurements need to be at any specific size or ratio to affect the overall appearance of the male body. Now, this does not mean that these other muscles shouldn't be developed. It only means that there has never been any research done to quantify what the ideal size of these muscle groups should be. However, this doesn't seem to be much of a problem if you're working to improve your Adonis index ratio. In fact, the type of workouts you would engage in to build the perfect Adonis index will have you do plenty of indirect arm work to build proportionate arms. Some people might require a bit of extra arm work to keep their arms on the pace with the rest of their body, however. But in general, the closer you get to your ideal Adonis index score, the closer your arms will get to their ideal size and proportions as well. Now, when it comes to your legs on the other hand, they are another story entirely. There is no research indicating that thigh mass is attractive or contribute to the many perceptual benefits of the Adonis index. With that said, I still think that legs should be decently developed to contribute to a well-balanced physique. But with that said, they are not a make or break feature of the ideal male physique. To keep proportions in place, most people likely need to take it easier on leg training by limiting their leg workouts to lower volume, like training them only once per week. The reason for this is that most people develop their legs much faster than their upper body, especially in the beginner to intermediate stages of training. This often leads to a very imbalanced look between upper body and lower body development. So to summarize, forget about bodybuilding, forget about 20-inch arms and weighing 250 plus pounds. The Adonis index within the natural limit of muscular development is the ideal look of the male physique. Now, if you want to know where you currently are, then make sure that you go to ironbuildfitness.com/male. There you will find calculators for both your waist to height ratio and Adonis index score. These calculators will help give you some insight in how far from the perfect male physique you are, and I will also provide you with additional information for what you need to do to reach the physique that you're after. So again, the domain is ironbuildfitness.com/male, and I'll be seeing you on the site. Bye.